Larry Fink on our network last week made a lot of news. I mean, are you surprised at how much someone like him he has come around? I mean, a couple of years ago, he was definitely in a no Bitcoin camp.
This is not a, hey, I woke up one day and all of a sudden I think Bitcoin's good now. Right? They went and they did the work, they did the research, they really spent a lot of time. Now, Larry Fink is one of the kings of finance. If Larry Fink says, hey, I think this has got a shot, people are going to listen. Sure. And so what's interesting is the messenger really matters. There's things that Bitcoiners have been saying for 10, 15 years, but now all of a sudden when it comes from Larry Fink, it has a different weight to it. Yeah. And so I think that we should only continue to see the traditional finance folks kind of take those same talking points and repeat them in different mediums.
You know, it's like every parent knows that, right? You can tell your kids something over and over again, and Taylor Swift says it, then it's right. Okay.
Bitcoin is sending us a major signal right now, a major potential clue that could hint as to what could be happening next for the price action. So what is going on, everyone? It's K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. First and foremost, the thing that I want to point out is that Bitcoin just closed its highest monthly candle of all time. I mean, not literally, this happened 3 days ago, but you know what I'm saying, guys. Highest monthly candle. Now, the thing that a lot of people are concerned about right now is, number one, we did get this price drop. So why did the price have this drop? Well, there is this circulating news about the US government initiating a test transaction to potentially sell 30,000 Bitcoin that they confiscated from the Silk Road. So that's like almost $2 billion worth of Bitcoin, roughly. So they have 2,000 of it right now that was sent to Coinbase Prime. So again, people are speculating maybe we're going to have some kind of a dump, right? Now, am I worried about this specifically? No, not really, guys. I mean, at the end of the day, we've had a lot of these different types of scares when it comes to Mt. Gox, confiscated Bitcoin. And you know what? At the end of the day, could it maybe make things a little bit weird in the short term? Sure. Yeah. I mean, hey, I think if anything, it would provide an opportunity to buy some cheap Bitcoin if they were to just dump all $2 billion at once, although that doesn't seem very likely. So, could that have something to do with it? That's a possibility. The other thing to point out is, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 green candles. Now, Bitcoin has never, in its history, unless someone can show me a chart that I'm unaware of, has never put in 8 monthly candles. We have always followed 7 months by at least one red candle. So this is why everyone is saying, are we looking to have a big correction this month? So I'm going to talk about a lot of different things today, put a lot of stuff into perspective, a little bit of a shorter video, guys, but it is something that I wanted to mention. We do have the halving coming up. And it does keep fluctuating between April 19th and April 20th, and I'm sure a certain community would love for that to fall on 420, but regardless, in about 16 days, we do have the Bitcoin halving. So just kind of looking at some quick TA right now, if you see where we are, we're pretty much just forming this giant pennant, right? And it's a possibility that Bitcoin could bounce sideways into the halving, which is this pink area right here. Could we have a fake out? Of course we could. I mean, there's always a chance that you come down to this area, and then maybe what we start forming is a descending triangle. So then, yes, in that sense, maybe that would be bad for the Bitcoin price. But if we have a look at the broader picture and we just stop looking at the smaller time frames, the reality is that we have entered a massive trend like we started back here. You could see once Bitcoin gets above this, touching these green areas is basically by the dip territory. And once you start going extremely parabolic, you're lucky to even just get into some of these lighter blue EMAs. If we have a look what we did right here, we actually had a perfect touch right here at around that $60,000 area. And because the trend is moving to the upside, remember, the trend is your friend. This does suggest that it would be quite shocking to see this type of a trend starting to only then have it immediately reverse. So could we have a red month for April? Historically speaking, that's what you would expect. But again, there's a lot of things that we did not expect, like a new all-time high before the halving, right? So I think it's pretty clear at this point that this cycle is different. But before we get to some of the crazy potential realistic price targets, which I want to go over where Bitcoin could actually end up going this cycle, I just got reminded about this video that came out literally 4 years ago when Bitcoin was around $8,000, and Anthony Pompliano is having a debate with Kevin O'Leary about why or why not you should or shouldn't be investing into Bitcoin. And I just think it's really hilarious. If you actually took the advice of Kevin Leary, well, you probably wouldn't be too happy right now.
Mr. Wonderful thinks it's worthless.
Well,
he called it garbage this morning.
I want to explore I did say that. I want to explore the idea that there's nothing here except raw speculation. Mm-hmm. No different than when I go to Las Vegas and put my money on black or red on a roulette wheel, because Where is the intrinsic value inherent in deploying real capital? Let's talk real money here, and putting it into Bitcoin as a storage of value. I get gold. For 2,000 years, including the Romans, they saw value in owning that as an asset class. Tell me why this, which is basically a digital game, that's the way I look at it, has any intrinsic value. When people actually put real money into this, they make no interest, they can't pay their taxes with it, the regulators don't like it, which is always a problem for compliance. And where's the long-term value? Just this idea that they're going to cut the number of units in half, that's such a scam. Like, that's just totally BS.
So I would say two things. One is it's disruptive technology. So if you look at it from a technology standpoint.
But that also has an odor of BS to it.
Look, everything that's new seems different, right, in the beginning. And I think what you've got to realize is with Bitcoin specifically, money is a belief system. So the US dollar, the only reason why you and I use it is because we believe it has value. So if I give you $1, you give me a good or service in exchange. Right. We believe that it has value. Bitcoin has value because two people who exchange it believe it has that value. And what we're seeing is the volume, right? Look at people using it. That's ultimately what matters.
What about all the other crypto crap? There's lots of other coins.
I believe Bitcoin is the king and is going to stay the king for a very long time.
So I taught a class at Harvard 18 months ago that young people in that class challenged me. I put $100 into something called Coinbase, which is a wallet thing. And
you buy Bitcoin?
I bought them all. I bought all the crypto crap. I put $100 in. It's now worth 30. That's a 70% loss on my crypto crap. Now, I bought them all. I think that really sucks. And I think people should understand today that the hot digital is Bitcoin. Tomorrow it could be whatever, right?
Again, I think that Bitcoin, the reason why Bitcoin is getting so much attention, it's the best performing asset in the last decade. Right, it's drastically outperformed S&P, every other kind of financial asset that's out there. And the second thing is the institutions are coming in because Bitcoin is actually a better store of value. It's more transparent and more secure. So for your portfolio, here's the number one thing I can tell you as to why you should own Bitcoin. It's a non-correlated asymmetric return asset that the value drivers of all of your equities, everything else is tied to earnings, GDP, interest rates, et cetera.
The problem is that Bitcoin's not tied to anything.
Well, neither is U.S. dollars, and how big is your cash position?
You know, I look, I love your optimistic view of it. You haven't changed my mind at all. It's still garbage, and I'm not going to take real money and put it into this thing. It's never going to happen. I mean, imagine real money, taking real dollars that I'm making in cash 2.1% on and putting it into crypto crap.
Agree to disagree.
Absolutely.
Okay, so your crypto crap garbage.
Garbage is better than garbage.
Right.
So honestly, that was just a fun clip revisiting. I love looking at these older clips. You know, even Andrew Ross Sarkin, one of the hosts on there, he just came out this morning and he's still doubtful about Bitcoin. Now, you had a chance when it was 8,000, you were doubtful. It's 65,000, you're still doubtful. It's like, you know, maybe at some point, people just don't wake up. And that's fine. You know, if you don't want to get into Bitcoin, you know, do you. And obviously, as the price goes up, we're going to have sellers. You know, it's going to happen. People are going to take profits. But you have to really just look at the metrics. Look at the numbers. For example, Bitcoin ETFs saw a record volume of $111 billion in March. $111 billion. Now, to put that into perspective, that is triple the inflows from February. Triple. And yet, some people are bearish still. It's insane when you actually look at these metrics. And right here, you know, like Bitcoin News pointed out in this chart, even at the price that we're at right now, Bitcoin has been profitable about 99.92% of the days since its launch, really with only about 6 days in its entire history in which had you bought, you would be down. So it would be quite surprising if there are any people watching that have bought Bitcoin and are down, unless, of course, you know, you sold for a loss. And this is all happening during a time in which inventories continue to fall. You could see that the balance on exchanges continues to become less and less and less as the price continues to go up and up and up, right? This is an obvious correlation that we're seeing between that with the inflows of the ETFs, as well as a lot of other major factors. So this is what I want to talk about today, and this is what Bitcoin is showing us, because this has only happened a handful of times for Bitcoin, and the last time that it did this, we saw price skyrocket about 200%, and that is pretty much when you start to test this top moving average of the pi cycle indicator. So what it's showing us, you see there's always that little bit of resistance. At first, what happens? We dance around the lower band, then it becomes support, Then we move off of it and we hit this resistance right here. And if we go back to the last time, that is exactly what happened. You could see right here, we were dancing around this area as support on the lower band. We had this move to the upside, and then we had this consolidation. Now, this consolidation lasted 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. And on the 5th week, we broke above it, and that's where we stayed above it, and we continued on the parabolic trend. Well, if we look at where we are today, we are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are at the 5th week. Now, of course, history does not have to exactly repeat. You know, we've seen, obviously, there's been a lot of things that did not repeat or play out exactly, but they do leave us these clues. Now, I know what you're saying. You're probably saying, well, how do we know that it wasn't something like this down here? Didn't it do something similar? Well, let's dive into that, because I also have the market cipher indicator down here, and you can see that the conditions that we're having right now, in order for Bitcoin really to maintain, or generally speaking, when it does have these parabolic trends, you have this red RSI tapping on the 100 multiple times. And I just want to say something, by the way, just because something is overbought doesn't mean it can't remain overbought for a long period of time, and vice versa, right? Just because something's oversold doesn't mean it can't remain oversold for a long period of time. And that's sometimes hard for people to understand, like, oh, it's getting too hot, it's overheating, it can't go any higher. No, actually it can. This is just letting you know that we're getting into that territory, but it doesn't mean that the momentum needs to stop, because as you can see right here, you know, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 touches on this area before we really started to see it go to the downside. So that's the first thing. You could say that we didn't even reach that level. We only got up to about 74. So that would make this canceled out. That would not be the same scenario. The other thing you could just look at is, you know, how long have you been in the money flow until you reach that signal? Well, we reached that signal right here at about 161 days, right? That's what we've currently done right here. And, you know, if we go back to what it did for the money flow in this area, it had only really been in there for about a month. Okay, so you could see that the trend was not as strong. So this makes me think that if I had to guess where we are based on the data, we are right here. The other thing that also makes me feel that that's correct is if we just simply look at it, not only is it corresponding or correlating or whatever you want to say with that area, but it's also lined up exactly with the previous all-time high. So we have the high consolidation as well as underneath that pi cycle moving average. And again, if we take it right here, you know, to the top, you can see that's kind of what we're doing. We're dancing around it a little bit. So again, these numbers, they're not exact, but this is definitely showing me that we are potentially moving into a much broader, more expansive part of this market. I mean, even if you have a look at the parabolic line from Rider Algo, whenever it breaks above that, you tend to have a very nice continuation to the upside. And as you guys can see right here, we have in fact crossed above that area, right? So here's where it gets interesting. Let's talk about possible price predictions. Now, I'm not even going to go crazy moon boy math. I'm not going to, there were some early cycles where, we absolutely shattered. No, we're just going to talk about things that every single cycle Bitcoin has actually done, right? And if you just use this simple extension of the Fibonacci, you could see how these levels, I mean, it's pretty incredible how at some point the chart tends to interact with them, right? So the first thing that we can extrapolate, and I'm not going back any farther than basically 2014. We've gone all the way back to 2010 on this channel. I just think going back farther than that, doesn't really matter. But, you can see in this first, or this cycle right here, leading into 2017, we obviously broke above all of these major Fibonacci, starting with the 1.618. So the thing that we can definitely say is that within every cycle, you definitely get above or at least hit the 1.618, right? So that's not really that far away. I mean, of course, we could talk about pullbacks. I mean, the next area for a pullback would be 62, with my lowest target of a pullback around 57. I just don't think Bitcoin's going to go below there. There's just way too much interest, way too much volume at that area, even though I don't have the VRVP pulled up, but I think you guys would agree that there's a lot of volume in this area. So based off that, with the 1.618, the fact that Bitcoin has hit this in every single cycle, it's never not touched this level in any of the cycles. That area is around $101,800. So we could just kind of round that to about $102,000. That is an area that I can honestly say, even though there are no certainties in life, in crypto, etc., I believe that that is a very bearish low base case for Bitcoin, okay? Also, in every other cycle, we have hit the 2.618. The 2.618 is sitting at around $155,000. Now, we've hit that in every single cycle as well. Where it gets interesting is the last cycle not breaking above the 4.36, which is very crazy because, as I pointed out, that level was 73,173. And I kid you not, if we zoom in right now, that is exactly the area where Bitcoin stopped on this recent rally. And my logic behind this, what I've been saying, is I believe that that is the price that we should have visited last cycle. But we never got that high. We stopped around 69. And the reason, I believe, had a lot to do with the FTX debacle, all of the things that were going on with Binance. We had a lot of crypto companies collapsing. It was a very, very rough time, right? We had Terra Luna. We had the stablecoin collapse. It was crazy. At the time, we didn't know if the ETF was going to be approved. The SEC was taking everybody to court. So yeah, I believe that that's kind of why we didn't go that last little, pop to the top. So putting that into perspective, okay, assuming that maybe we have diminishing returns and maybe we don't go to the 3.618, which, by the way, if you're curious, would put Bitcoin around $208,000, then I would say that the most average, logical, straight down the middle, diminishing return theory has happened in every single cycle that Bitcoin should hit at least, or not at least, but it could hit 155,000. Okay. So I would say that, 1.618, there's just no reason why we're not going to 102,000 unless something, crazy happens. And then the next likely target would be 155,000. Now, after that, we have 208,000 and 241,000. But again, I'll leave that out for now. That's like the mega bullish case. I mean, obviously the mega bullish case is like 500,000, 1 million, but just based on history, okay? The super bullish case is $240,000 Bitcoin. The most likely probable average area where we should hit is around 155. And the absolute low ball, we had one of the most boring, bull runs of all time. Bitcoin's going about 102,000. So that's basically what we're looking at just by extrapolating the data. But, also like Cathie Wood had spoke, she says that people are adopting Bitcoin to hedge against governments that are devaluing their currency. And that's the thing that I also like to point out is it's not only just the speculators in the West. And yes, of course, once Bitcoin does get up to some of these levels, you're going to have the speculators hopping out, right? But there's also those people that not only understand Bitcoin, but actually need it.
What's your analysis of why it's moved the way it has?
Okay, up dramatically.
Right.
You have the ETFs. There's something else going on around the world. There are currency devaluations taking place that people are not talking about. The Nigerian naira is down 50, 60% in the last 9 months. Egypt just devalued by 40%. Argentina continuing to devalue. I think this is a flight to safety, believe it or not, taking place. A hedge against devaluation, a hedge against a loss of purchasing power and wealth. That's very important. And we saw this even here last year in the United States. Regional banks imploded. Right. Bitcoin went up 40%. Bitcoin does not have counterparty risk. I think, and we're putting out a piece in the next few weeks, which is this is both, get this, a risk on asset. And so you talk about the NASDAQ.
The risk on.
But it is risk off. I remember we got in at $250 when Greece was threatening to leave the euro, right?
But is that folks that are speculating about currency, or is that folks in Nigeria and in Greece and other places saying, I got to get my money out of this currency and move it themselves? Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, yes. I think this is an insurance policy against rogue regimes or against just horrible fiscal and monetary policies.
So that's it for me, guys. Let me know what you think. Do you think April is actually going to be a red month and we're not going to break the curse? Or do you think for the first time ever in history, we will get 8 straight monthly candles for Bitcoin? I mean, we are consolidating at that area right now. Could we go sideways a little bit longer? Sure, we could go sideways into the halving, but the more realistic, logical thought would be a break to the upside, simply because you have so much momentum and so much in this trend. And the number one rule that I always go by is the trend is your friend until the end. So trying to call tops and pick tops and say, oh, we're overheated, we've gone too far, there really isn't anything in the charts to tell us that we should be worried when we have a trend that's been predominantly an upward constructive trend for over a year now. So that's just something to keep in mind. Thank you so much again for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. If you guys do want to learn how to trade, check out these tutorials. And also don't forget that LevX bonus is still live. They will match any trade up to $5,000. And basically, if you win, you get to keep your earnings. And if you lose, it was free money anyway. So that's it for me. Thank you so much. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.